Hey, let's talk about the Prime Minister, because after PMQs, he's off to Iceland, not the supermarket, the country, for an annual get-together with the leaders of the Nordic and the Baltic countries. Downing Street says he's going to use the occasion directly to address the alternatives to Britain remaining in the EU ahead of the referendum on membership. It's due to take place at the latest by, November 2017. The official position of Mr Cameron, who's leading the renegotiation with other EU members, is that he rules out nothing if fellow leaders reject his proposed reforms. But today, The Telegraph reports that he will warn voters life outside the EU would be, quote, not a land of milk and honey. Indeed, he claims exit could be costly.
Number 10 has also released a series of statements, including one from the Norwegian Prime Minister, urging Britain to reject their style of relationship with the EU. Norway is, of course, a member of the European Economic Area, but not a full member of the EU. Well, this message was apparently aimed at those campaigning for a British exit. So let's get some reaction now from the Conservative MP, Steve Baker, from the Vote Leave campaign. Steve Baker, the chairman, or certainly one of the members of your campaign group, says Number 10 appear to have dropped any semblance of neutrality. Is that how you see it?
Well, I do think the terms of debate are changing now. As Sajid Javid said to the CBI, you need to be prepared to walk away from a negotiation, and it's looking less clear that the Prime Minister rules nothing out. Right.
Is he in a panic mode?
No, I don't think our Prime Minister panics. I think they might be worried, but I don't think they're panicking.
Right, well, a spokesman for the Vote Leave group, of which you are a member, said the briefing showed Downing Street was in a panic.
Well, I think it's a range of views, but as a Conservative MP, I'm loyal to the Prime Minister on every possible subject I can be. I've got a great deal of faith in David Cameron, and I don't think he's given to panic.
Right. I mean, ahead of the speech, Downing Street sources are saying that leaving the EU is not necessarily a land of milk and honey. Would you rather prefer him to say that staying in might not be either?
Well, I think it would be a good idea if he said that staying in wasn't a land of milk and honey, and I hope that while he's in Iceland, he'll ask the people of Iceland whether they would join the European Union today. And I think the answer is that about 7 out of 10 would reject European Union membership. It's very unlikely that a country like Norway or Iceland would join the European Union as it is today, so I'm afraid some of these things are comparative. But we believe with the UK having an economy which is 4 times as big as Switzerland, 5 times as big as Norway's, we think we can get a British option.
Is he right, then, to be warning against the virtues of the UK following the Norwegian model?
Well, the Norwegian model does have its downsides, but they're very often not as bad as people suggest. And Norway, estimates vary, but some say that Norway only has to adopt 10% of European Union proposals. So there's a conversation to be had about the status of Norway, but nobody in our campaign is proposing that we adopt that model or the Swiss one. We think, as our biggest export market for the European Union, that we're in a strong and powerful position to negotiate for a British deal.
Right, but I mean, even in Norway themselves, they say it's not the ideal option at all. You pay for all the regulations and you have no say.
Well, they don't quite have no say. Think about the Codex Alimentarius, which deals with fish. It's based in Norway. The Norwegians chair it, that's my understanding. They produce the global rules. They're handed down to the EU. The EU then hands those rules on to Norway. So the reality is for Norway, if they're influencing those rules at a global level, they've actually got more influence than if they're represented by the European Union on the same body.
Right. Yeah, go on.
So for many of us, we believe that Britain, as the fifth largest economy in the world, is capable of regaining its influence and power in world affairs and in world regulations by leaving the European Union and having a hold seat on some of these organisations.
Steve Baker, thank you.
You're welcome.
Brandon Lewis, the Prime Minister says he rules nothing out when it comes to Europe. So why is he ruling out the Norwegian option?
Well, I think he's also been very clear about the concerns around staying in Europe as it is. I think what David has been saying right the way through has been consistent around we need to get a renegotiation that's in the best interest of the country.
There was nothing in the briefing that came out of Downing Street warning against the dangers of staying in.
Well, actually, what they have said, and the Prime Minister himself has said on numerous occasions, is actually we need to get that renegotiation. We don't want to be part of where Europe is going.
Sure. So why is he ruling out the Norwegian option?
Well, I think he has said quite clearly all the way through that we will look at all options. He is looking at what's going on across Europe, but ultimately it's about getting the right deal. Actually, to be fair, exactly the point Steve made about the right deal for Britain. And I think we need to let that negotiation go forward.
But that means nothing, right? I mean, nobody's going to consciously agree to the wrong deal for Britain. It may be the wrong deal, but they're not going to consciously agree to that. The Prime Minister is meant to be essentially neutral until he does the renegotiation. Then he tells us we could all make up our minds. So why is he preempting the debate now? Is he beginning to panic?
No, not at all. I think, again, Steve Baker made a very fair point. The Prime Minister doesn't panic. He's always delivered the right thing for this country, both in Europe and on the wider scale, actually. And actually what we're going to see over the next few months, going into next year, is those renegotiations going forward. Once we get into next year, we'll have that opportunity to see exactly where we end up. And then, as you said quite rightly, in 2017, people will get a chance to have their say on what they want to do.
With a variation of the Norwegian option?
Well, we'll see what comes through with the renegotiations.
I know that,
will
but
make
what's
a
wrong
proposition
with it? We're being
as we go
briefed by
forward.
Downing Street that it's not right. I'm asking you, if it's not right, what's wrong with it?
Well, it's about looking at, ultimately, what is the right deal for us. It may be that we're able to get a renegotiation that gives us exactly what we want and staying part of the European Union. And I have to say, I'm a member of Parliament, a part of the world where being part of the European Union is hugely important with the energy industry, for example, let alone tourism. But actually, we want to make sure we've got it on the right terms for Great Britain.
All right, let me try one more time. What would be wrong with a version of the Norwegian option for Britain if we voted to come out of the EU?
Well, I think we're a long way from voting to come out of the EU because we don't know actually yet what we're going to vote. I think that's the ultimate problem, Andrew, is actually we've got to know exactly what we're voting on. Until the renegotiations are finished, we're in hypothetical situations. And I'd much rather wait, let the Prime Minister do those renegotiations, make a recommendation to the British public, and then we all get a chance to have our say.
When will Jeremy Corbyn start campaigning to keep us in the EU?
Well, we've already got a Labour campaign to keep us in the EU. It's led by Alan Johnson
That's
and Jeremy Corbyn.
But when will Mr Corbyn get involved?
Well,
because we've not heard him say very much since he became leader.
Well, I know he has already endorsed Alan Johnson's campaign and has said that the Labour Party will be campaigning to stay within the EU.
Do you think his heart's in it?
I think he's.
I mean, he voted to leave in 1975.
He did, yes. And well, he did, apparently, as I said. Last time I was on your programme, I pointed out I wasn't even born then. But
I was just wanting you to remind our viewers of that.
But look, Jeremy has said that we will campaign as a Labour Party to stay within the EU. We've got a campaign led by Alan Johnson. Labour MPs, on the whole, will campaign to stay within the EU. Of course, we've got a handful of MPs who are more sceptical about our membership of the European Union. But the splits in the Labour Party are not on the scale of the splits in the Tory Party. And I'm sure that Jeremy will be out there campaigning alongside Alan Johnson, alongside me, alongside Hilary Benn and other members of the Labour Party.
You are sure of that?
I am very, very confident of it.
Not quite the same.
Have you got your fingers crossed when you said that?
No, not at all. Not at all. I'll be campaigning with Jeremy on the streets, and you can join us. You can come and see us as we're campaigning.
Isn't it a bit dangerous for the Prime Minister to rule out the Norwegian option? Because if he fails in the renegotiation, I know in the Tory talking points we are not even contemplating failure, but it's possible he could fail in the renegotiation. And if he does, and if he can't get any changes, the Norwegian option, version of, suited for Britain, would have to be on the table.
Well, I have to up front say that we are talking about a Prime Minister who has succeeded for this country in the negotiations he's done with Europe over the last few years in the previous coalition government as well. So I think he's got a track record that gives me confidence that he will deliver for our country. Ultimately, the decision will be for the British public, not for us as politicians. The British public will get a chance to have their say.
OK, thank you. Jo.